Hello and welcome to another episode of Untold Chapters with AustinMacauley Publishers. Today's guest is Dean Knight, a writer from South East England whose lifelong passion for storytelling has culminated in his debut novel, The King Chronicles. Inspired by his love of action and adventure across films, books and video games, Dean has crafted a gripping tale which seamlessly blends real and fictional history. Thank you for featuring on an episode of Untold Chapters. Would you like to introduce yourself and your book for us?
Of course. So thank you for having me. My name's Dean Knight. I'm from Kent and I have a degree in film media studies. I've always had a complete love for creative writing. I currently work in internal communications, so I have the genuine pleasure of writing a range of content daily. My book, The King Chronicles Arcanum, is an action adventure story that follows two generations of the fictional King family as they travel around the world looking to find three pieces of an ancient artifact. Which, when brought together, is said to reveal a long-lost island where a civilization and its treasure, which has been lost to time, will be found. They're not alone, of course, in their hunt and face a thrilling and dangerous quest to uncover secrets that have been hidden for thousands of years. And I've always wanted to write something that I myself would love to read, and I'm very proud of the final book and story, and really enjoy sharing it with other readers.
Definitely gives me strong, national history, is it? Oh, national treasure, that's it. National
Yes.
treasure
Yeah.
vibes. So I've forgotten that for a second there. What inspired you to create a story that intertwines both an ancient mystery as well as the modern day family adventure?
Yeah, so I've always been heavily inspired by action adventure stories. They can be across a variety of media, so film, television, books, or video games. I love stories where the ordinary becomes quite extraordinary, and I've always wanted to create my own adventure for people to enjoy with the thrills of the cinema and film within the pages of the books. That really comes to life and has a fast pace. Inspiration itself for the story came from a variety of areas. So from video games such as Tomb Raider and Uncharted, films like you say, National Treasure, The Mummy, King Kong, Indiana Jones, are kind of really classic kind of mysteries. And then I also grew up with a genuine love of books. So from a very early age, I'd love the early Goosebump books. I would read those multiple times, so the thrills and the horror of that, and got a lot of enjoyment from that. Getting lost in worlds like Harry Potter and Tolkien, and experiencing thrills of books like Before I Go to Sleep and The Da Vinci Code. That I remember the Da Vinci Code especially being very kind of like fast paced, and I could never put the book down. And that's what I've always wanted to get from my own stories. So yeah, those experiences have all come together to inspire kind of that mystery and modern day adventure that was kind of put together in my book.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, especially when you get the chance to actually read your book
Yeah,
since it is now a physical book, and
yeah,
add that to your collection.
yeah. It's mega cool. It's mega cool.
How did you approach balancing the modern day adventure of the King family with the historical elements of the ancient artifact?
So I would say having characters in the modern day searching for relics of the past was a really fun topic to tackle and to write, and it presents an opportunity to blur the line between real world locations and history with a very strong what if scenario of like a long lost treasure island and the civilization that it has along with it. So racing around the world against other less well intentioned groups and bad guys and whatnot presents a thrilling pace, and it means the reader can enjoy an Indiana Jones or James Bond style kind of range of exotic adventure locations that are grounded around ancient clues. So the going back to your question, the balance between modern and historical elements was really fun to write, as it led me as a writer to spend a lot of time researching ancient civilizations and locations around the world. So this helps me flesh out the fictional parts to be as believable as possible. So throwing in little lore style pieces about like pirates and myths and ancient things around the world was great, and it helped me keep that balance between the new and old.
Did you ever come across a particular piece of information that you found, interesting or didn't know before or anything like that?
Nothing particularly comes to mind. I really enjoyed learning about Atlantis and the myths around that, and learning about the Mayan civilizations and the ruins that are there. And it's just inspired me to go and view those places in real life. Obviously, not Atlantis; that's fictional. But in terms of like the Mayan civilizations and stuff, it really kind of, I guess, solidified that as an interest.
I'd be very, very surprised if you were able to somehow find the lost city of Atlantis.
No, that's not going to happen.
Ah, you never know. You never know how, well, because with how deep the ocean is, you just might go on a
That's
holiday one
very,
day.
very true. That's very, very true.
He's like, "Oh yeah, hi hon, how was your holiday? Oh, it was great. Did you know I found the lost city of Atlantis?" He's like, "I'm sorry, you did
Yeah.
what now?" With so much at stake in the story, sacrifices seem to make up a big role of it. How did
Yeah.
you approach exploring this theme, and what do you hope that readers take away from it?
Yeah, so you're right. So sacrifice is a large part of their narrative. I mean, I've always believed that strong and memorable characters are those who overcome what seem impossible situations, both emotionally and physically, to kind of reach their end game and their end goal. So loss, sacrifice, and using these to find strength are definitely key underpinning themes of the story. There are a few pivotal moments where main characters are definitely faced with huge choices. These sometimes result in like personal sacrifices that bring a lot of emotional weight to the story. I always believed that having a story where no one person or thing is like safe or invincible, it creates a real sense of danger and excitement if that is the case, and those stakes help keep the reader engaged and second guessing what's to come, which is what I've really aimed to get through every single page and chapter of this book. So what I hope that readers can get emotionally invested, as although the story does take place in like a heightened adventure, which obviously is fictional, it features tense and heart pounding moments that are really relatable, surprisingly, to each of us in our own life experiences. So there's one scene in particular, which I won't spoil, but I know it turns the book completely on its head with a very big twist. And everyone who's read the book and given feedback has said that they are shocked and didn't expect it to happen. Like, it's a very brave decision to make. A great example recently, I got a very surprised review from my mother-in-law, who never swears. She said that when she read the part in question, they were so stunned, they swore several times, put the book down, had to stop what they were doing for a while, and then go back to it. So I think for me, that was alone was a really, really amazing bit of review and feedback, which I really need to get somewhere online so people can see it. But yeah, it's very cool. So for me, knowing readers that have been shocked and kept reading is highly rewarding, and that kind of underscores the importance of the theme.
Because when someone's reading your book and
Yeah,
you invoke like any emotion in them whatsoever,
yeah,
it honestly, you've already ticked every box that you probably setting out to do. Because
yeah,
that's the point when you're reading a book is, to actually feel something, or unless it's educational, I guess. And that's probably a different type of emotion. And also that is, so when you were, writing the book, what was
yeah.
your process for crafting the three pieces of the artifact? And did you imagine a specific history or culture behind the creation?
I did, yeah. So I based a lot of the original myth of the story around a fictional ancient power that kind of existed at the same time as the Mayan civilization did thousands of years ago. Obviously, it didn't, but it's like a fictional insert into the genuine timeline. Now, the ancient power was at war with another, and as it fell, it wanted to hide its surviving culture that resided on a remote island with a lot of treasure and kind of remnants there. It did that by putting the location of the island on an ancient artifact, and then when it split it into three, it hid it around in three different parts of the world, so it would only be known and discoverable if that was all brought back together. That was a deliberate choice, other than the mystery and kind of prolonging a nice search globally. But having the artifact in three locations, along with the island itself, gives you opportunity to use a lot of real historical places with my own kind of fictional locations and twists, which kept in my opinion, the range and pace of the story quite constant. There's never really a dull moment, and if there is, it's very, very minor. I mean, I love stories in our culture of similar lost worlds, like we previously mentioned Atlantis, which is actually featured as like a little lore style reference in the backstory of the book. So yeah, it was a really nice pleasure to bring together all those elements of kind of like real history with fictional stuff to bring together the artifact.
As you wrote, did any of the characters surprise you by developing in ways you didn't, originally plan?
Oh, definitely, yeah, and it was really, really rewarding to see. I mean, later in the story, friends of the main characters have some real character building moments, be it through like loss, grief, empowerment, or moments of genuine self belief. One character in particular, if I won't spoil, has to rise above quite a distinct emotional challenge to survive at all costs. There are two main characters in the story throughout, and one in particular experiences a complete character arc and evolution, becoming someone completely different from who you meet at the start, a stronger, more wise version of the character you first meet, through a shared mix of love, loss, adventure, discovery, and determination. So the development of the characters in the story really surprised me as a writer, as I was able to see how actions of individual characters impacted others, which added a lot of depth to the narrative. So yeah, it surprised me watching those characters develop from the initial ideas to the final pages.
Also, did you have a favourite character?
Um, I do. I can't say anything about them particularly because it's one of the spoilers. But one of the main characters that's introduced was definitely a strong favourite of mine, and embodied a lot of the adventure that was being put to page. I appreciate it's a very vague answer, but yeah,
Honestly,
didn't want to spoil anything
understandable.
too much.
Well, because that's the thing, you can't spoil anything, and makes you
No.
want to read the book even more. So, speaking of the writing process, did you have a set idea of the story before you started writing it, or did it more develop as you go, or like changed as you go?
A little bit of both. So the writing journey itself was thoroughly enjoyable, and I encourage any writer to just put pen to paper and or type and go for it. And before I wrote the story in full, as like the final novel, I wrote it out the main plot points and then turned it into a film script. Now initially it was just a bit of fun to kind of, because I did film at university, so it was just a nice bit of fun in my spare time to just put things to use essentially. So the main part of that was to give a nice structure to the story, and it really helped expand and develop the initial idea, as the bones and the main story beats were there in the film script. Now the story definitely developed and grew throughout the process, as originally what is now the middle to the end of the final book was actually the entire story. That was what was the film script. And then once I began to build out the world and characters and add further dialogue and more descriptive pieces, there was a lot of room to flesh out areas of backstory into an entire first half of a story, which is great. I started writing it way back in late 2013 or early 2014, around there. And it took about a year or two to about 2016 to kind of complete a rough film script. So I was only doing it as a bit of fun on the side. And then from around then, 2016-ish, I really grew it into a full novel. I finished it in a year or two, but it was during lockdown where there was like a silver lining of having the extra time where I was able to kind of really hone in, and my wife helped in terms of looking at the content of it and I guess honing and refining it into the final version it is today. So yeah, there was an idea of the story. It definitely grew though, as I say, from going from the original tiny contained story into a brand new narrative. So yeah, it's a good process.
Sounds like you had fun as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's really, really enjoyable. I think it was at a time where I had a bit more spare time. So yeah, I would like to write some more, but I think for now it's just a case of trying to celebrate what's there and trying to get people to enjoy it.
The book takes readers on a global journey. How did
Yeah.
you choose the locations featured in the story? And did you, because I know that you were saying earlier about visiting.
Yes.
So did you visit any inspirations for other locations that you were like creating if it was more fictional based?
I did, yeah. So, as I mentioned before, I mean, being a huge fan of action adventure, I know that a whirlwind tour of the globe full of exciting locations is essential to making a good narrative. The story itself takes place over several beautiful locations that include Rome, Greenland, southern England, Central America, and the Caribbean. And I chose those locations due to their mix of history, which kind of added to the backdrop of the story. When actually writing scenes that would take place, which I hadn't visited, I would often go on Google Maps Street View and plot out how scenes would take place. For example, the opening chase scenes that take place in Rome in a very James Bond-esque style, kind of like spur of action. I spent hours looking at maps and imagining as in the lens of a film almost
Mm.
that would look good and how it would flow through the streets, and if people knew the locations, they could really imagine it. A fun kind of like side story to that in terms of visiting is that my honeymoon actually ended up being an accidental, like unofficial press tour of of a location. So my wife and I went to Rome, and it happened to be where the opening chapter of the book takes place. So we had a bit of an adventure ourselves, kind of going on foot to all of the key locations from the opening chapter of the book, which was over quite a large span of Rome. It took a while to do it. So we visited Roma Termini, which is like a train station in central Rome where it all kicks off. Ponte Sisto Bridge. We climbed up Castel St. Angelo, which is I think it's a castle, and then viewed the river Tiber or Tibia, I can't remember exactly pronounce it, and the St. Angelo Bridge, which is breathtaking to see, and all the other locations that are included within that kind of scenery. And at each location, we recorded some video showing the scene literally coming off the page by taking the page from the book where it mentions the place, zooming out and seeing the beautiful scenery. And it was really fun. And I think seeing it in person confirmed to me that locations were right. And they had such a beautiful mix of architecture and history that they really were the best places to do it. So, yeah, it was fun to create those and share them on Instagram and just kind of try and add a bit of visual weight to the words.
And also, it adds a more of a sentimental element to your honeymoon as
For sure.
well, getting
For
to
sure.
technically a closer look into the
Mm.
world of your book.
Yeah, it's really, really enjoyable. It was really, really fun to kind of going from the virtual and seeing it online to seeing it in person, but after you've already written it. So it was a kind of like
Mm.
a nice kind of like reflection.
What do you hope readers will feel or learn by the time they finish the adventure with the King family?
I'd say mainly a sense of adventure. I know it's the genre, but I think that's what I'm aiming for them to really feel that they've really gone along on the journey themselves with the main characters. I think there are moments that show uh, no matter what obstacles you come across, you can always overcome them. So I'd like to believe that readers can also take that sense of empowerment away from them, as well as a kind of like, well, that was fun, that was cool. And I've written the story as an adventure that's suitable for anyone kind of over like 16ish, so with no upper age limit, who are
Mm.
fans of action adventure. And I think that's because the story is a timeless arc of characters going on a globe-trotting adventure to go and find life-changing treasure. And I found that I've had a complete range of people give me feedback, which has been great. That kind of solidifies that. So I've had people from their early 20s right through to their 90s that have read it, and they've all been able to really enjoy it, get engrossed, because it is that kind of young at heart adventure that you can just get yourself involved in. So yeah, I'd say that's what I'd like people would take from the adventure.
One of my favorite games is
Yeah.
Uncharted as well.
Oh
Love the
yeah.
series, and I
Yeah. Yeah.
completely
Same.
fell in love with the last one as well, especially with the higher graphics.
Oh, for sure.
And something that because you do visit so many different places, you do
Yes.
feel like, because obviously you're exploring it yourself. So yeah, I
Yeah.
do get what you mean with taking readers on an adventure, and
Mm.
technically you get elements of the different places, especially when you physically do research into the different places to get
Yeah.
those vibes from the places.
Yeah, for sure, and that's why it was a main inspiration, because I mean it's a fantastic kind of like story that is fast paced and it goes throughout the globe, and you get to experience things, but there's also the touching emotional elements of it as well. So that was what I was trying to really kind of like bring to the page with my story.
If you had to summarize your book in a single sentence, what would it
Yeah.
be?
Is the ultimate treasure worth the ultimate sacrifice would be quite good, because the interview and discussion we've had, there's a lot of moments where the characters to really think about what are they going to sacrifice, what are they going to push, how far will they go to achieve, like treasure, fame, fortune, or just archaeological discovery. And I think that for me is the main question that I'd want people to ask as they keep reading.
Thank you for listening to our most recent episode of Untold Chapters. If you would like to see more content like this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube, and follow and review on Spotify.